Hello and welcome to Record Sports Hotline Live. My name is Daniel Cott and I'm delighted this evening to be joined by Record Sports transfer specialist, the Scottish version of Fabrizio Romano, the one and only Scott Burns. How's it going, Scott?
I'm good, how are you?
I'm very good, thanks. You are the perfect man for tonight's show, the perfect guest, because we are firmly into the last week of the transfer window. I know this is like your favourite time of the year. And the only place for us to really start, Scott, is Celtic. We'll have all seen, people watching at home as well, we've all seen Peter Lawwell getting a bit of stick on social media yesterday after the St Mirren game. Do you think it's lined up to be a massive week for Celtic? Do you think they'll go all guns blazing and push the boat out?
It seems to me that the Celtic Park telephone line will be the hotline live this week. Because they really are going for it. I mean, I know that Brendan sort of put word out there after the game at the weekend that there's no point in having the club record money in the bank. You know what I mean? The clubs, the fans deserve to see the money spent on quality on the pitch. And it certainly looks like he's going to get his wish because Celtic have been active. They were active before in terms of lining up deals before Matt O'Reilly's transfer was officially confirmed this afternoon. They had things lined up, but they're now pressing the button on deals, and they've got multiple offers in for players.
Well, the one that keeps popping up again is Augsburg's Arne Engels, Belgian midfielder, who anyone that's played Football Manager in the last couple of years knows that he is a big name. He's very highly rated, and on the face of it, seems like he'd be a perfect replacement for O'Reilly. On top of that as well, there's Matthias Bogisch, who's at LAFC. They were playing in the League Cup final last night. But do you anticipate anything kind of from left field, Scott? Is there any names we've maybe not heard that might come into the picture?
I think there are. I think you're certainly looking at, in terms of the main names for the midfield ones are probably out there. The ones they want are the ones out there, but I can see another striker come into the equation. A third striker along with Kyogo and Adam Ida. And obviously there's talk of the winger at Lazio as well. The Danish boy, what's his name? Gustav. Yep, they're definitely after another winger. And I think if they were to get another winger, that might well see Lewis Palmer leave Celtic before they close the window.
Interesting. He's not really made a mark, Lewis Palmer has. He's a couple of bright spots, goal against Atletico Madrid last year, a couple of good free kicks, but Rodgers doesn't fancy him, does he?
No, I don't think he does. And I think his lack of pace is a problem as well. You know what I mean? Doesn't really fit into the way that Brendan wants to play and press and be on the front foot. So if Celtic get players in, I wouldn't be surprised to see Lewis Palmer going out in the last few days.
Aye. Do you think, I'm going to throw over to Michael Gannon, Record Sports, Michael Gannon, in just a moment. However, 30 million, up to 30 million for Matt O'Reilly, we're led to believe. Do you think there's any scenario in which Celtic will spend 25 to 30 million in the coming days?
I don't know if they'll spend it all, probably not, but I think they'll spend the guts of it. I really do think they'll spend the guts of it. Arne Engels is the man they've wanted Brendan Rodgers identified as Matt O'Reilly's replacement. So I know that there's a bit of a gap just now between Augsburg's valuation and Celtic's valuation, but the players obviously agreed terms. He wants to come to Celtic, and I do think that will happen over the coming days. It'll just be a case of what point they get to for the figure, but I believe he'll come in. The Polish boy, Matthias Bogisch, as well, he remains an option they want as well, on top of Engels. So, and then, as you say, the cup finals out the way, they lost that, didn't they, to Columbus Crew. Mm-hmm. I think Celtic will step that one up as well. So I think that those two, I mean, if they can get those two, that will spend quite a large chunk of the Matt O'Reilly money. There's also been some other things floating about today as well. You know what I mean? There's been talk of Edward coming back from Crystal Palace. Obviously, that's the one that a lot of the Celtic fans would love. But I mean, I spoke to people close to Odsonne Edward today, and I'm told that it's not a goal. It's not on the players' radar at all. And another one banging about for long enough. It's always thought there might be a chance of Kieran Tierney coming back come the end of the window. As it stands, there's been nothing on that so far. But then again, window doesn't shut till Friday.
That's true. There's plenty of time yet. Earlier on today, as I say, I spoke with Record Sports' Michael Gannon, who has spent a lot of time over the summer with and around the Celtic squad. And here's what he had to say on Celtic's late transfer dash.
Mick, we've all seen the clip yesterday of Peter Lawwell getting stick after the St Mirren game. Strong words from Brendan Rodgers as well. Are we about to see one of the biggest spends in Celtic's history between now and Friday?
Well, that's the big question. I don't particularly agree with people giving abuse to club officials and all that stuff. I think it's a bit off taking a pop at Peter Lawwell. I get the fan frustration at the lack of kind of spending, but you got to remember Celtic are pretty much just been in charge of one. 15 titles out of 2021. They won 5 trebles. They've not done badly under Peter Lawwell, and I get there's frustration, the perceived lack of ambition or spending and all that stuff. I know this window hasn't gone particularly to plan so far, but I don't think making a guy feel uncomfortable going to the game, his work, is a way to go about it. Mm-hmm. But however, the pressure is on the guys in charge at Parkhead, because obviously Brendan Rodgers was pretty strong, wasn't he, after the game yesterday when he came out? Pretty much said that they should have been into the last week in this situation. There's been frustrations, there's been failures. It's something he's looked at. Once the window's closed, the whole thing he's looked at. So he admitted that. He was very honest. I thought he was very forthright after the game. Pretty transparent, which was good. Didn't quite. I remember I asked him why it was this so slow and it happened this year, and he said it's not for talking about now, but it's been 3 windows, so there's obviously issues behind the scenes. But no, there's issues with changing recruitment, the Mark Lawwell situation, him leaving. No sporting director really, or director of football, or no head of recruitment at this point in time. So we know there's issues behind the scenes that need to address. That should have been done. It's 6 months since Mark Lawwell left, so this is not overnight thing. So there's all that in the background, and it means it's in this last week having to go and chasing players, but they are chasing several players, that's for sure. We know there's bids in for Arne Engels, Augsburg in Germany. At the moment, it's on the low side for the German side, but I fully expect Celtic to push harder for this kid. He's so highly rated. I think this is one they really want. But we need to see how much they want him. Mm-hmm. Do they go? The chart over there is 8-10 million euros or even pounds for him. So it's going to be a big outlay for a 20-year-old. But if he's worth it, they need to go and pay the money. Obviously, there's Bogus out in LA. There's another one that's been picked up. Again, at this point in time, the chart is that they're not close in terms of valuations. That might change as the days go on, with the window getting closer. There's the line up of defenders. Obviously, the big talk about the Barcelona fullback. Yep. Coming in, that looks as though it's a goer. So that'll provide some competition for Greg Taylor. That's a position it's a kind of strange one at the moment. Obviously, Greg Taylor's contract's kind of running down. He's in the final year. All gone quiet on that one.
It's a bit strange, that, eh?
I think so. The parties involved haven't reached an agreement. I think if there was something that the Greg Taylor's camp would be happy with, they would sign it. I think Celtic want to keep him, but there's to and fro, and it happens. I think Greg Taylor might want to see what his options are as the season goes on. He keeps talking about people by bringing a left back, so I don't think you want to be Celtic go big and by bringing a left back, and if he's out of the team, I think he would be wanting to play every week. At his age, 26, he's in his peak. Right. So I think he's got a lot to think about. So I can totally understand why it's kind of hit a little bit of an impasse. The lad from Barcelona is a loan deal. We understand it's not an obligation to buy, but I think there's maybe a possibility they could buy. But in the risk is if he comes in, does really well, performs great, the price is going to go up, a bit like Ademedia. So that's a gamble as well. But maybe that's a kind of stopgap until they know what's happening with Greg Taylor. So there's a lot of plates spinning at one time. Brendan Rodgers said they don't want to have self-inflicted stress. Well, that's what they've got. They've got a week of mayhem now, because this all should have been done weeks and months ago. The lad from Augsburg has been on the radar for a long time. Prices going up as the window closes, and the lads from the LA again as well. He had a good start to 2024, so he's been on the kind of the watch list for a good while. So these are things that could have been done earlier, but now in the situation they're going to have to run about their hair on fire and get these things done before Friday.
The other name, Mick, that's come up today, which is quite a tantalising prospect, is Odsonne Edouard. From a couple of reliable sources down south, apparently reliable sources, Celtic are kind of sniffing about, maybe bring them back, 26. I mean, do you think would that make sense to you?
Yeah, listen, I think the chat is that the Palace are looking to kind of offload him, whether a permanent deal or a low. I think he's a year left in his contract down there.
Yep.
He's in big money. So in a situation with Edouard, I suspect Celtic will be on the list of clubs that have been offered him. In fact, they will have been. Clearly, he's a player that Ben Rodgers knows really well, having signed him the first time round. Kind of lost his way a wee bit. I mean, did well down south at first. I don't think he had a great season last season. He's maybe not the best of starts this season. I see him in the weekend actually missing a decent chance. He looked like a guy who didn't quite have the full confidence in himself at that point. It was not like him. I mean, he was never a shy lad up here. No. That's for sure. With Panenkas and all this kind of nonsense. So he was never short of confidence. So it does look a bit. It could do with a bit of a change of scenery, a change of environment. Celtic, I think, would take him at a heartbeat. I mean, the question is, if we do, say they get him on loan for the remainder of his contract with a view to maybe getting him back full time next year, where does that leave Kyogo? I mean, do you need 3 guys like that? Interesting, isn't it?
That's a weird one. I have no idea where he'd fit. I know Edward sometimes played off the left as well, but I suspect Celtic maybe keep touch and keep an eye in with the Edward situation just in case, because the Kyogo one, I know it's been a bit quiet on the Man City thing, but you can also, the Man City link might have been a bit of a Trojan horse as well. I think there might be interest coming from elsewhere in Kyogo, which could be interesting. Listen, he's 29 years old. We know what he's about. He's a top performer. He's been a brilliant signing for Celtic. But if the chance comes for him to get a big move at that age, you couldn't really grudge it. And again, it's a Celtic model. If Celtic get 20 million quid for Kyogo at 29, you've got to say, yeah, it'd be a major blow, but that's the model. That's the operation, how it works. And if they can get someone like Edward lined up to come in, it softens the blow. I mean, a top-notch strike. I mean, Edward was brilliant in his time at Celtic the first time round. Really, really impressive. I mean, I think Palace get a good deal for him. I mean, they get him for about 20 million. They got him for. Albeit, I don't think I think he did well at first down there. I don't think he's hit the hair on fire recent times for whatever reasons. But it's a club that's maybe struggled with changing managers and all that stuff. So yeah, it's an interesting one. But I think that's one that Celtic might have in the back burner as a just in case job. But again, wages, unless he can secure some kind of payoff for his final year, it might be a loan. I wouldn't have thought it'd be a straight buying at this stage because of the wage packet he's on. Because we heard that back then it was a bumper rise he got from Celtic. Mm-hmm. So, but I mean, by no means a certainty, but an interesting one to keep an eye on. Mick, it's always a pleasure having you on the Hotline Live. I understand you'll be back in person later this week, so much appreciated, and I'll see you then.
As you can probably imagine, Scott, there's been a big response on Record Sports social media outlets to Celtic's transfer movement. Before I get your take on what Mick just said, I'll throw a few at you. Mark Nicholas Moore has written in on Facebook saying, this is the week that will see quality arrive at Celtic Park, which will make us a serious mark in Europe. Trevor Phillips signing players from Barcelona, that'll do for me. There's also been a couple of comments on the Peter Lawwell stuff. Mick here saying he totally disagrees with it. Give the guy a chance, he's never let us down. And this one as well from Gerard. Peter Lawwell gets a hard time. He was an excellent CEO at Celtic and much sought after. He now has little saying transfers, got off his back. Hazel has written in, watching live on YouTube, saying, stop messing about with the price of Engels or we'll miss out on him. It's happened before. You would think we would learn. And I'll just finish on this comment from, where are we? David Jones, who says, bet you it will be the usual come Friday night. We tried, but everyone put their prices up because they read about how much money we have, so no more signings. I would say, Scott, I'd be stunned if that turns out to be the case on Friday, purely because Celtic just can't afford that to happen. They can't let that happen.
Well, as I said to you, they've got multiple offers out for players. So if they end this window with no more signings, then I think Mr. Nicholson will be looking for a new job.
I completely agree.
No, I mean, they're certainly active. They've got offers out there to clubs. They've got offers out there to players. They're trying to do deals. So they are going to spend money. I know in the past we've talked about the biscuit tins. We've talked about more interested in dividends and shareholders than the product on the pitch. This time, I do think that the Celtic board have come in for a lot of stick in recent years. I mean, the sleeping at the wheel stuff and all that. But it looks this time like they are going to invest a major chunk of the Matt O'Reilly money into the squad this time. And I think that most of the Celtic fans will get their wish. Because it's not even, we've talked about midfield players, another attacker. Mick obviously talked about the Barcelona fullbacks coming in, Alekville. They're also, Gustav Flagger Bielka's meant to be going to FC20 on loan. They were trying to get rid of him on a permanent basis. But once he goes out, I would expect Celtic to bring in another left-sided centre-half as well, who you're looking at the first choice variety rather than anything else. So it's looking like quality over quantity this time. And I know that Mick touched upon the recruitment and that. I mean, Jay Lafer's come out. He's done a lot of it this year. He stepped forward. They've got Paul Teasdale, the former Exeter manager. He's in there doing scouting now as well. But my understanding as well is that the main driver in the recruitment this year has been Brendan Rodgers. He's been the one having the final say. No, not the final say, but a big input in the signings and quality. Rather than he wants players of a quality rather than maybe project players, which a lot of the time Celtic signings in the past have maybe been more leaning towards. But I do think they will make some major signings in this window and in this last week.
Far be it from me, Scott, to speak on behalf of the Celtic fans, but I do think that is what the Celtic support has been crying out for. Proven quality players who cost a few quid rather than project players. And just before we move on from Celtic, we've had a fair few comments in on Odsonne Edward, Hazel. Edward's too lazy, no thanks. Kevin Roxburgh, Edward, no thanks. Just to draw a line under Edward, I'm actually surprised to see so many people reticent to the idea of him potentially returning to Celtic. But you've made some calls, Scott, and there's nothing really in it. Is that
no, not from the players' side. There's no, as it stands, there's no chance of him coming back to Celtic. I mean, some things might change in the last week, but as it stands, there's nothing on the radar with regard to Celtic. I think the player's happy where he is, and if he was to go, then he'd probably be looking at a bigger league.
I mean, I think with the money he's on, that's probably a safe bet. Right, we'll move on, Scott. Across the city to Glasgow, we've had a lot of comments sent in from Rangers fans. I'll start with Andrew Lamb on Facebook saying, "Don't suppose it will happen, but how about Jack Butland sold for 10 million and Morgan Whittaker and Kiki bought? I'm convinced Liam Kelly will be fine as the number one keeper." Graham Donald's written in.
Liam Kelly's dad.
Might well have been. Graham Donald, Rangers aren't a threat to Celtic until they buy some decent players and compete with them. I'm not a Celtic man, but they're miles behind in strength and depth. This one as well. Drew Heaps. It's plain and simple. The financial gap between the clubs is massive. We won't be genuine challengers on the field until there is proper investment. I know it's difficult for Rangers. A lot of it is kind of dependent on players going out. I mean, Ianis Hadji and Todd Cantwell are the two names that keep, getting brought up. But do you think there'll be any sort of investment this week, Scott, in the Rangers squad?
Look, as it stands, even if they can't get any of the players they want out, they've got scope to bring in at least one on a loan, right? It'd be a loan, and it could be a loan with an option to buy. It won't be a loan with an obligation to buy, but they have got scope for an option to buy. So there is money that could be put in place for that sort of deal. The rest of it is pretty much about freeing up budget and wages from the current playing staff. I mean, for example, Ben Davies went to Birmingham City there. But, I mean, Rangers have got quite a bit of his wages covered, but they are still paying a large chunk of his wages. And I think the majority of players, if they do leave, there'll be loan deals, and Rangers will need to pick up a fair bit of the tab. And that is where Philip Clement has got one hand tied behind his back, because a lot of the players they've got, he doesn't want, and they're probably being overpaid, because the level of clubs who want them aren't going to pay the same wages as they are on at Rangers, and that's the big issue.
Aye. He's paying for sins of previous regimes, pretty much, Philip Clement.
Well, I mean, it's other people have given them contracts. I mean, the other people who gave them contracts probably saw good value in them. The managers who brought them in would have played them, sort of thing. So it all swings and roundabouts. You can understand why these players have been signed, because a manager has said, look, he fits into the system. He's one of value. He'll play. I think it, can add value to the squad. But when you keep changing managers every so often, then the squad, you inherit other players. You know what I mean? In your squad, and that's an issue. And it takes a few windows to try and clear that out. But when you're a Rangers or Celtic manager and you're not top of the league, you don't get that sort of thing. You've got to hit the ground running. And that's the problem that Philip Clement has got now. And as like one of the listeners said there earlier on, that Celtic probably they are streets ahead financially. They've got the money, and if you look at the squad, they've got the strength and depth. Rangers are probably still struggling to get their strongest starting 11 out as it stands. They probably hope to add 1 or 2 in before the close of the window. So that's where Celtic have got they're probably streets ahead as it stands, and it's a big job for Philip Clement to try and motivate what he's got and try and get the best out of what he's got.
Just to sum up on Rangers though, Scott, you think even if Cantwell and Hadji and maybe a couple of others can't be moved on, there is room for them to bring in one first team ready, potentially a lone player?
Yeah, and what they're wanting is it's an attack. The current priority is an attacking midfield player who can either play in the centrally or off the left, and that's what they want. You know what I mean? Obviously, since then as well, they've got rid of Davies. They've got rid of double 5 figures in terms of wages, so that might give them scope as well for another defender.
Yeah,
but that's what they're looking at. I mean, I see that they were like an Egyptian player today. They're talking at him, Ibrahim Adel, isn't it?
That's right. He was a big performer for Egypt in the Olympics that's just gone by.
Yeah, I mean he's a left winger, so that sort of fits into what Niels Kopp and Philip Clement are looking for just now. That's the area, the priority they want to strengthen.
Aye, he was certainly made a name for himself at the Olympics just past. I think it will be a massive week for both sides of the Glasgow divide. But moving away from Glasgow, we had this sent in from Neil Renton. Scott, what on earth is happening with Hibs and Hearts this season? Week after week, they're trying to outdo each other by seeing who can put in a poor performance and end up with a bad result. The Glasgow pair, Rangers and Celtic, at the Old Firm. How long will it take before the Edinburgh double act are called the In Firm? What do you envisage much being done in the capital before Friday? Both Hearts and Hibs just seem, I actually think on paper they seem quite strong. You know, it seemed to me anyway that they'd done good business over the summer, but really woeful start to the season for pretty much both of them. Yeah,
and then both have. I mean, both boards have invested in their playing squads. They've made a number of signings, you know what I mean? But it seems to be, Hibs seem to have issues defensively. Yep. They struggle to keep clean sheets. They've brought in strikers and seem to be scoring goals now, but they struggle to keep clean sheets. And then Hearts at the other end struggle to score goals. We had Lawrence Shankland last season on fire, but now this season they can hardly buy a goal.
And aside from Shankland, who's going to score? No, it feels like there's no one in that team that's going to pop up with a goal if Shankland is having a not even an off spell or a bad spell, but if it's just a game where he doesn't score, it's difficult to see how Hearts find the net. It's really,
I mean, it's a slow start. I mean, it's been difficult because we've got obviously the European ties at this stage early season. They didn't play in the League Cup, so didn't have them games to get under the belt. But what I would say is, Hearts have got quality. Hearts will come good. They've signed some good players. I'm sure once they gel and click, it will come together. I mean, for example, Vargas, I was out, as you know, in Czech Republic last week, and I thought Vargas was quite impressive with his movement and in his pace. So I think he'll chip in with a few as well. But Hearts wise, I still think they might do something before the close of the window. There's talk of another. I know that Hearts asked the question about Kevin Nisbet, but at that point he was well down the road with Aberdeen, so it wasn't even like, look, either or. It was like the word back was, no, I'm going to Aberdeen. So they're clearly looking at offensive players. Another one that they've been linked with is, well, there seems to be a lot of talk on social media, is the Rangers player Scott Wright. Yeah. But I spoke to people at Hearts today, and they say there's nothing in that whatsoever. But it looks like Hearts would probably, if they're going to do anything, would maybe bring in another offensive player.
Aye. Understand as well, Scott, that you have a little bit of news for us on St Mirren tonight, and a potentially, I think, would be an excellent signing for them.
Yeah, St Mirren are. Stephen Robson's a good manager. He's done really well in Paisley. He seems to have strengthened his squad again this summer. I know results haven't gone as well as in recent weeks, but a lot of that's been down to the new experience of playing in Europe. But they are looking to add another striker before the close of the window, and their main target is Kevin Van Veen, a player that both obviously Motherwell fans will know well and Kilmarnock fans will know well. I'm sure it's a Jekyll and Hyde experience from both sets of fans. You know what I mean? Motherwell saw the best of King Kev the season. Obviously he was in the running for the Player of the Year award in Scotland. He came back last season on loan at Kilmarnock, and he didn't, for whatever reason, set the header alight. But Stephen Robinson is interested in the player. He is still at Groningen in Holland, who are keen to move him on. The ironic thing was that although Kevin wasn't playing for Groningen last season, they won promotion to the top flight. So he's won himself a bumper wage rise.
Oh, okay.
But Groningen are keen to move him on. So if they can come up to a settlement with the player, then St Mirren would be keen to try and do something. If not, it could possibly be a loan at the end of the window. But obviously, it all comes down to finance. But he's a player that Stephen Robinson would be keen to bring to Paisley.
Are you surprised, Scott, there's maybe not more clubs in for Van Veen? I know it didn't work out at Kilmarnock, but I mean, almost 30 goals for Motherwell the season before. I would have thought if he's available, pretty much anyone with the ambitions of finishing the top six should be looking at him.
You would think so. You would think so. I mean, certainly if you get the player who was at Motherwell, I'm surprised that most teams in the league, probably outside maybe Celtic and Rangers, would be looking at him. You know what I mean?
Aye.
But then the other side of it is that Kevin Van Veen's career's been a sort of up and down. You know what I mean? It's been a bit of a roller coaster. You've been highs and lows. There's been a lack of consistency apart from that spell at Motherwell where he really hit the heights. But I mean, there's no doubt there's a player in there. I think everyone knows that he wants to come back to Scotland. So if he can find the right place and the right manager like Stuart Kettlewell, who got inside his head and seems to know how to make him tick, then you'd have a major asset in your hands. There's no doubt about that.
Aye, absolutely.
Also at St Mirren, by the way, there was interest from Wolves in the young player Ethan Sutherland. But I think there was a proposal put to St Mirren, but that's been turned down, a six-figure proposal. That's been turned down. I think St Mirren, by all accounts, are looking to open contract talks on him to try and tie him down on a long-term deal. So another positive for the St Mirren fans there.
Aye, absolutely. Another one to watch. Scott, I think that brings us to the end of tonight's Hotline Live. It's been an absolute pleasure having you on. And I know, as I say, this is your busy time of the year. We will be here every night at 6 p.m, giving you the lowdown on the latest transfer news. And Scott, hopefully I will drag you back on at some point this week for a couple of more updates. Scott, thank you very much for your time.
That's great. Thanks. Good night, everyone.
And thank you for watching at home and all of your comments. We'll be back tomorrow night at 6 p.m. Cheers.